Okay, we have most of the people in. So hello everyone again. I would like to officially welcome you to today's session. My name is Martin and I'll be walking you through today's webinar where we're going to discuss the topic of Coupa and SAP integration and share with you some best practices and recommendations around how you can execute this integration in an efficient way in order to save valuable resources. We're also going to discuss some of the SAP transformations which are happening across SAP-centric companies and give you Rojo's perspective on what role integration plays in these type of projects, and of course focus on the role of integration within the context of implementing Coupa or migrating from ECC to S4HANA. Moving on to what we have planned for today as an agenda. First, we're going to start with a quick intro of Rojo as a company, what we do, what we focus on, and what is our position within the SAP ecosystem. Then we will try to give an answer to the question why integration matters in organizations nowadays. And then we're going to move to the core topic of today, which would be explanation of how you can actually connect Coupa and SAP and what is the recommended way of doing it. At the end of the session, we're going to share with you a customer success story along with some interesting KPIs that you can keep track of. And we're also going to conclude with a Q&A session. If you have any questions or comments throughout the webinar, feel free to use either the chat section or the Q&A section of the meeting to put those in, and we're going to address them at the end or throughout the session via my colleagues. Alongside me today, we also have my colleague Ambuch, who is an experienced integration consultant. He has been working closely with both Coupa and SAP on the product development of the solution we're discussing in more detail later on. And he's also been in the lead of numerous implementations we've already done for our pre-built integration. So that's in terms of the agenda. Now let's take a quick look at what Rojo does as a company. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see multiple logos. Of course, the focus of today is Coupa, but in order to understand the position that we have as a company within SAP, we have listed here all the different applications that we provide standard connectivity on via our adapters, which are natively developed on SAP Integration Suite. A couple of important points. We are the exclusive OEM partner of SAP to develop this standard connectivity to third-party apps. We're also a partner of Coupa, and we have worked alongside them in order to develop our solution. And we also have a roadmap for the next 4 years to release 50 more adapters in the coming years. So this means that Rojo covers a very wide set of integration use cases related to third-party apps. But on top of this, we not only build software, we also have lines of business which are related to professional services and managed services, which allows us to cover a full integration lifecycle, from building the integration to implementing it and then operating and optimizing, essentially maintaining these integrations. And another example of what we do in the SAP integration domain, you can see here a couple of books, starting from SAP PO, the older on-prem technology of SAP middleware, all the way up to the newest SAP integration suite technology. Our colleagues have been co-authors of those books. So this is another example of the confidence that we have when we speak about SAP integration. I mentioned in the agenda slide that we will try to give an answer to the question of why integration matters, what is our perspective on integration in general for organizations nowadays. And I think understanding our role as a company in the integration space sets the stage for actually seeing the bigger picture. I think we can all agree that nowadays businesses are handling more applications, more data, and an ever-increasing demand for real-time connectivity. So what this means is that we're essentially living in a world of more. On average, you can see here on the slide that businesses are handling over 1,000 applications, and you can imagine that each of these applications is generating, consuming critical business data. with a metric of 25% increase on average for this data year over year. So what this means is that all those aspects may make integration more challenging than ever. And at the same time, the expectations of both the end users and the business have changed. Now everyone expects real-time connectivity, not some kind of batch updates or manual workarounds. And moving to those multi-cloud environments means that data and processes are now actually spread across multiple platforms. This brings us different set of challenges, and at the same time, integration is often perceived as some kind of an afterthought, which leads to inefficiencies and unnecessary costs. However, at Rojo as a company, we believe that integration should be at the core of your overall digital IT strategy. And we would argue that organizations which want to succeed in today's ever more interconnected world need to consider integration as a key concept and essentially implement solutions that are scalable and built for the future. Moving on with some of the old practices against best practices, as we call them, related to integration. Traditionally, integrations relied on things like batch delivery, file-based transfers, and direct point-to-point connections. And while these approaches may seem familiar to the majority of the organizations, they actually represent a tightly coupled set of dependencies. And this tightly coupled set of dependencies may result in costly and risky changes whenever you want to make some changes into your integration layer. And in comparison to modern integration strategy, it follows a very different approach. So nowadays, we actually have real-time data transfer, we leverage API-based communication, and we essentially use middleware to simplify and scale the integration across the full enterprise. And we believe that companies that embrace these best practices for integration are actually better positioned to adapt and innovate in today's digital world. So overall, we wanted to use those two slides to set the stage of why integration plays such a vital role before we move on to the core topic of today, which is, so what does all this mean in relation to Coupa and SAP integration? And in the next slide, we're going to take a look at some of the major transformations which are happening in the SAP landscape in the coming years. What is currently happening in the SAP ecosystem can best be described as a major shift, a major transformation. Essentially, there is a push from SAP to move away from older technologies like, for example, SAP ECC, the predecessor of S/4HANA, and SAP PO, the predecessor of SAP Integration Suite. And this shift has a huge impact on, for example, Coupa projects when it comes to integrations. If we take a look at the timeline that we have here on the slide, you would see that in the beginning of 2025, 61% of all SAP ERP customers are still running ECC, while at the same time, the end of mainstream support for ECC and also for SAP POPI is at the end of 2027. So what this means is that the majority of customers have not even moved to S/4HANA. So they have not yet reached the stage where they would need to rethink their full integration landscape, or if they have this even better. But it speaks to the fact that you need to have an overall strategy which fits into your full digital IT strategy. Moreover, in 2028, we have the sunset of SAP new BTP environment, and by 2030, even the extended maintenance for SAP ECC and PO ends completely. So to give you a summary, this means that a lot of the SAP-centric companies are either planning a migration, already migrating, or will be forced to migrate soon. And when they do, they will need to rethink how Coupa, for example, integrates into their new SAP landscape. And this is why you need to consider as early as possible how to adopt a future-proof S/4HANA ready integration solution in order to be better positioned and stay ahead of the curve. Because essentially, I would say that you're not actually solving today's problem, you're selecting a solution which can make the most out of your investment in those two platforms overall in the future. And you can see on the left hand side we have put a couple of considerations that you need to take into account, which is how to maximize the return on investment, how to de-risk the integrations in relation to SAP transformation, and how to actually make this fit into your full IT integration strategy. And what this means for Coupa and S4HANA is that essentially you need to figure out a future-proof and easily to implement way to integrate S4HANA with Coupa. A lot of the customers that are already using S4HANA would have SAP BTP in their stack. Within SAP BTP, we have SAP Integration Suite. So it would be a logical approach to go with something you already have available in your landscape instead of investing in some new technology or a new type of integration when you can use ready pre-built solution in order to do this integration. The good thing about leveraging the existing pre-built solution in SAP BTP is that essentially you're going to follow also SAP best practices around integration. So those best practices are, for example, having real-time integration, being API driven, and having an integration which is scalable instead of relying on those outdated approaches that we saw a couple of slides ago, which were while familiar, very outdated as of 2025. And even if you follow those approaches, you need to consider a certain set of challenges. We have listed them down here at the slide. Those are the challenges and considerations that you need to keep in mind whenever you're planning any integration with S4HANA. So, for example, in the Coupa example, you would need to consider first time and effort. You need to answer the question, how long is it actually going to take this integration running? You need to consider other aspects such as what is the maintainability and the scalability of this solution. It is one thing to create the integration, but it is a separate thing to make sure that these integrations run in the long term and it is scalable enough to fit your growing needs. You also have the concept of data consistency. Will procurement and finance always stay in sync, for example? And overall, you need to consider the time to value and the cost. And in the previous slide, we spoke about how you can future-proof your investment. I think it is very important to think in terms of, hey, what is that I'm investing today, but also what is it that I'm investing in the long term? And of course, the time to value that I mentioned, it is crucial to think about how long is it going to take this deployed? Is it going to drag out or is it going to be an efficient implementation of this pre-built integration that we're going to describe in more detail later on? So now that we have understood a bit about how you can actually get the two systems connected, I would like to show to you what would be the best practice and recommended way from both Coupa and SAP to actually connect the two systems. So essentially, we are moving on to the solution. If we have listed all those challenges, now let's take a look at how you can modernize your Coupa and SAP integration by leveraging Rojo's pre-built integration package. I would say the important thing that you need to consider is instead of building something from scratch, which can easily take months or longer because it starts with gathering requirements, designing a solution, building this solution, then going through the implementation and then the operation optimization, you can actually get a pre-built solution which would enable you to get an adapter and integration content out of the box. This pre-built integration package that we provide contains those two software solutions. Both of them are running on your own SAP Integration Suite license as a component of BTP. And you can think about the adapter as, let's say, the technical bridge that establishes the connectivity, and for the integration content as the pre-built business processes which are running between Coupa and S4HANA. So for example, thinking about replicating supplier information or a purchase order between S4HANA and Coupa, this is actually taken care of in our Coupa integration content. In the next slides, we're going to discuss how you can actually deploy the adapter, where you can get the integration content from. But the important thing to consider here is that essentially this is also a recommendation coming from SAP. If you go into help.sap.com and search for modernizations recommendations on the SAP Help portal, you would see a document which lists what are the benefits of going with pre-built integration content. Essentially, this would enable you to start with a better template and lower the development effort which is needed to develop an end-to-end connectivity between the two systems. Of course, I guess some of you might be thinking, for example, that the S4HANA and the Coupa systems at your organization is different than the S4HANA and Coupa setup in another organization. And this is an important consideration to have. And exactly for this reason, the integration content is also customizable to make sure that it fits your specific requirements. And as part of our offering, Rojo also has a complete enablement package, which would cover the installation of the software, making sure that it runs end-to-end to Coupa and S4HANA, and overall taking care of the full integration piece regarding Coupa and SAP. So once more, to summarize, the important things that you would need to consider are the speed of deployment, the total cost, is it according to best practices, and how scalable is overall the solution. So this so far covered very high level what the integration consists of. If you have some questions as to what are the particular scenarios that we cover, we now have 22 in total as of Q2 2025. You can reach out to us separately and we can provide you a list. Now I wanted to also spend a minute to talk about KPIs. What we mean by KPIs are those are some of the so-called indicators of success that you can take a look at here on the slide. For example, 6 plus to 4 might not seem like a lot, but this is essentially the time to value. With a pre-built integration in comparison to a typical integration project, you can reduce the time to value from 6 plus months to only a couple of weeks. 0 to 60, this is the cost savings that you're going to realize. Essentially, by using pre-built and pre-packaged integration content, you can lower the total cost of ownership for an integration project by up to 60%. 0 to 80, this covers the out-of-the-box connectivity that we provide via our pre-built integration. Already discussed that this integration is also customizable, so therefore it cannot be 100% out of the box, and it does require some effort in order to make sure it runs end-to-end. And last but not least, 0 to 100, this is the SAP compliance of the pre-built integration. Because the SAP adapter is actually publicly available for customers via the SAP Business Accelerator Hub, and the Coupa integration content has been certified by the Coupa App Marketplace, we are essentially providing a solution which is 100% SAP compliant. And I already mentioned in the beginning that, of course, as an integration company, we have a wider portfolio of connections and of pre-built integrations. But overall, those considerations that we have here, they might be Coupa specific for the point of this webinar, but there are also important considerations to keep in mind in any other integration project that you might be taking on. And in terms of how practically you can actually get the solution, it is quite easy. You can log into api.sap.com. There you can download the adapter. You can also take a look at the documentation. I would like to highlight once more that the Coupa adapter is essentially free for use via your own SAP BTP license. The integration content, which was the second part that we saw on the high-level overview. The integration content you can get directly from Rojo. It is this set of pre-built integration scenarios between the two systems, and you can also, if you want to go to the Coupa App Marketplace, we can fill in your details, and then the Coupa App Marketplace will connect you to us. The idea would be to discuss your specific requirements, where exactly you are along your SAP integration journey, and what would be the most appropriate course for action for you, because we saw that there are multiple companies which are not yet moving to S4HANA or are in the planning phase and so on. So therefore, each specific use case is different, and we're able to provide you tailored advice. I think here it's also important to mention that there will be some customers which are running ECC instances still. This solution can be implemented for ECC as well, although it comes with some additional considerations that we can also discuss and share more details in case you have specific questions. This covered the main part of the starting part of the webinar, where we discussed integration in general, how you can do Coupa and SAP integration, and what is the recommended way of doing it. Now I'd like to pass over to my colleague Ambuch, who will give you a breakdown of the Coupa adapter features, and then also show you how this looks like in the SAP integration suite tenant. So over to you, Ambuch.
Thank you, Martin, for setting up the context. And I hope it's clear to our audience how Coupa Accelerator can help you with your Coupa implementation project. Now, I would like to showcase you, give you look and feel of Coupa adapter and integration content. So Coupa adapter enables you to connect to your Coupa platform through the cloud integration environment, and under the hood, it uses REST API of Coupa platform, and it provides you a secure way of connecting with Coupa platform through OAuth authentication. And it also covers some of the advanced features like pagination, and supports multiple payload formats as well. Now I would like to show you how can you download this adapter and what are the features of these integration content. I will share my screen. So you think it was already covered. How can you get the adapter from the marketplace? You can also go to your integration suite and discover this adapter there and download it from there. And for integration content, as Martin already mentioned, we are covering vast set of master and transactional data, which you can integrate through these integration content. And this is something which you can get from us and start using it right away in your Coupa integration project. And I would like to show you one of the integration content which basically replicates, let's say, supplier from SAP to Coupa. This is how it looks like. So this is a real-time integration between SAP S/4HANA to Coupa. That means any new supplier or changes which happens in S/4HANA will be synced to Coupa immediately. And basically in these integration content, you can simply configure this integration content based on your end system. You can simply configure your S/4HANA and Coupa details through these configurable parameters and start syncing the data right away. And you can understand that you do not have to build this integration from scratch. That is one of the major advantage of using this integration, prepackaged integration content, that you can simply configure it, run it in your SAP integration suite. Every integration content comes with a default exception handling mechanism and logging mechanism as well. And we have built the integration content in the way that you can switch it on and off based on your integration need, or if you have some need of handling exception in different way, you will have a placeholder in the integration content where you can achieve those kind of requirements. I hope it gives you more understanding about the Coupa adapter and integration content. Over to you, Martin.
Yes, thank you, Ambuch. I think here it is useful also to mention that actually the installation of the software, which is the adapter and integration content, actually takes a matter of couple of hours. So if you are planning about how much time it takes just to get the software, this is done very quickly. And then we also have, of course, the services which are related to making sure that this runs end to end in your specific environment. Thank you, Ambush, for giving us the overview of how this looks like within SAP Integration Suite. And as mentioned, if you would like to check it out for yourself, you can always visit the SAP Business Accelerator Hub and have a look and feel for the adapter there by downloading it. At the end of nearing the end of the session, we also wanted to quickly run you through a customer success story that we have from the US market. This is regarding a US electric car manufacturer. We already discussed a lot about challenges, considerations, and so on. So therefore, we wanted to illustrate here how this looks like in a real customer scenario. There were a couple of challenges that this US electric car manufacturer had in the beginning of the project. They had a goal to achieve seamless data integration using automated processes to overall reduce the integration effort and the timelines that they were presented with in case they had to develop something from scratch. And they also wanted to realize cost savings by getting this faster time to value. So it was a logical solution for them to take advantage of the pre-built integration. And because of the complexity and tight project deadlines, building and of course the cost associated to it, building something themselves was not the preferred option. Therefore, they decided to use our standard Coupa adapter and Coupa integration content and managed to realize a host of benefits in only a couple of weeks. Essentially, within just 4 weeks, Coupa was fully integrated into their S4HANA system, and they were able to start realizing the benefits and the investment that they have done in both Coupa and S4HANA, and at the end achieving real-time data flow between the both systems, which gave them complete visibility and control over their full P2P process. So we wanted to share this success story in order to show you how this looks like in a real customer implementation. And it's also good to know how you can connect with us in case you have any questions. You can scan the QR code in order to contact us or reach us at hello.rojoconsultancy.com. As already mentioned, you can visit the Coupa app marketplace, search for SAP S4HANA Accelerated by Rojo, and be redirected to leave your contact details, or you can visit the SAP Business Accelerator Hub, search for Coupa adapter and download the adapter there. So this is on the topic of how you can connect with us. Before we move on to the Q&A, lastly, I wanted to share with you that we have another webinar which is coming up. This is a webinar related to our Salesforce PubSub adapter, one of the more newly released solutions of our company. Essentially, this adapter enables real-time event exchange between these two platforms. And if you want to register on this slide and on the next slide, you have the QR code. It is at the end of May in the afternoon for the Central European time zone. So in case it is not a suitable time for you, you can always reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide you with a recording of any session that we do. And this brings us to the conclusion of today's session. We hope that we have provided some important considerations, some best practices, and really tried and really have given you the full picture in terms of context, not only focusing on the particular integration project, but how this essentially fits into your full integration landscape and overall digital strategy. Now we would like to move on to the Q&A section. I see one question coming up in the section, which is, do you also have a connector that works with Evalua or Zycus? Also procurement platforms. Yeah, we do work with other procurement platforms as well, but the topic of today is of course Coupa. We would suggest that if you have detailed questions, you can also reach out to us separately and we can discuss. But in general, you saw that as a company in the beginning of the presentation, we cover a lot of other third-party applications. So of course we have standard connectivity to other applications, not only to Coupa. So feel free to reach out to us for additional information on this. Any other questions, any other comments? Feel free to share them now in the chat or in the Q&A section. I also want to share with the audience one question that we get quite often, which is what is the difference between adapter and integration content? The main difference is that the adapter is publicly available from SAP, while the integration content comes from Rojo. But overall, when we do implementation projects, we make sure that, of course, everything is taken care of as part of this project. So don't think that you need to get the two solutions from different places. This would all be covered via the full engagement that potentially you can have with Rojo. So let me just also take a look. I don't see any further questions coming. So yeah, I think we can conclude the session here. I would like to thank everyone who attended today's session. We are happy to see you as part of our audience. As always, be on the lookout for our upcoming events. I already mentioned we have another webinar planned, but we also have other digital events planned in the coming months. So you can also subscribe to our newsletter. And for any questions or need of any information, feel free to contact us directly and we'll be happy to provide you with further information. So thank you all for attending and thank you Ambuj for walking us through the demo in SAP Integration Suite.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.